the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests today are Ursula Brooks, an actress, and radio host Cindy Laverty. Actress Ursula Brooks was born and raised in Australia. You've seen her on the big screen in such films as Angels and Demons and Lost Souls, and on TV in Deadwood and The Bold and the Beautiful. And she's been on the stages all around the world. When did you decide to be an actress?
I think it was, during my childhood, but I didn't really pursue it until I went to university for 3 years, and then I auditioned for drama school.
That's what I wondered. Where'd you go to school?
Drama school?
No, the first one.
Oh, at Sydney University.
Oh, you were in Sydney.
Yeah, and before that I went to a convent. I went to Loreto Convent Kirribilli.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
So you were very well trained.
I was very well trained.
With good manners.
Lots of pain and torture.
When you got to drama school, you had to audition to get in?
I did.
And what do they do? They take you out of or do you finish college and then?
Yeah, I did. I went to college, university, and then I decided, well, I better get some training in something other than just sort of world knowledge. And I went to drama school. I actually went to drama school with another Australian actor, Hugh Jackman, who's very well known.
Was he in the same college?
He was at the same
Just in the drama school, but not in the same college.
It was a one-year intensive course.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. And then he actually went on to do another couple of years, I think, at a musical theater place after that.
Because I saw him on Broadway, of course.
Right, yeah.
Singing and dancing like
I know,
he was
I had no
Peter
idea.
Allen.
I know.
How did he do it? But you were in school with him.
He was he wasn't singing and dancing in our course. He was just acting. It was just acting and voice classes, and then he went to a theatre school which is over in Perth, I guess, and that's where he learned to sing and dance. I couldn't believe it myself.
Can you sing and dance?
I can dance. I can hold a tune, but I don't think you'll see me in a musical on Broadway.
I mean, that was 2 hours. That was 2 hours on
he
the
was
stage.
phenomenal.
I know.
Yeah,
that's great.
It was a great show.
Well, what was your big break? I don't think that was his big break. I think he'd already had.
He'd worked up to that one.
And I think it just showed what he could do.
Exactly.
So everyone needs a big break.
Well, my big break was probably on the equivalent of Saturday Night Live Australia. I was part of that. I was a series regular on that show for about a year, and that
what
was
do they call that?
They call it Full Frontal.
Full Frontal.
Yeah.
I saw that in your bio, and I thought, I can't put full frontal. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, there was actually a film made here with Julia Roberts, I think, called Full Frontal. But anyway, at the time, it started out, it was first called Fast Forward, and then it was called Full Frontal when I was on it. And Eric Bana was actually on the show.
But was he a comedian? Were you comedians?
Yes, he's an incredible comedian. I mean, that's how he sort of really got his break. He's a quite great mimic.
And do you put on an American accent? Can you do that?
Yes, I'm doing that in the play that I'm doing right now.
Tales of Hollywood. Tales from Hollywood by Christopher Hampton.
And it's actually about a group of emigres from Germany, but the way Christopher Hampton has written it is that when it's performed in, for instance, America, everybody uses American accents because we would have been speaking German to each other.
Oh, so when if you
were
here as the group
in London, everybody has English accents. If it's performed,
they do
in Australia, it would be with an Australian accent.
Because they speak from the language that. No, they're not speaking from the language where the play was written.
What happens is if ever an American comes into a scene, the German-speaking people have to start using an accent.
And that's...
So it's quite confusing for people, because when I first read it, I said, oh, well, I'll be doing it in a German accent. And the director, Michael Peretzian, said, no, Christopher's very specific about that, and everybody would be using an American accent, because when you're with German people, even if you live in LA, you speak your native tongue. But obviously, if we were speaking in German, no one would understand. I wouldn't understand.
I'm sitting here going like, what is she talking about?
But it actually makes sense when you think about it, because it took me a while to be on board, and then suddenly the penny just dropped, and I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I understand what they're doing.
Okay, so Michael Peretzian explained that all to you. He's a fantastic director.
He is. He's a lovely man.
What kind of style did he use with you?
He sort of let the actors sort of unfold. It's a very technical play, so there was a lot of technical stuff that he had to deal with. But
in what way?
There's a lot of furniture moving in between every scene. There's a lot of, he uses videos, and there's a lot of sound cues. So on that sense, it's a lot of technical stuff. But when we were rehearsing the scenes, he really kind of let us just play and find stuff. And you know, I would say that he's like a gentle director. Some people come and rule with an iron fist, and that's not really him.
Tales from Hollywood is written by Christopher Hampton.
Yes.
What's the story?
Well, it's the story. He was actually commissioned to write the play in the 80s. He was staying with Gordon, what's his name? Sorry, I'm having a blank.
From the Center Theatre Group.
That used to run the Mark Taper film. Gordon Davidson, there you go.
Oh,
he was staying with Gordon Davidson in Santa Monica Canyon, and Gordon Davidson had bought Salka Vertel's house in Santa Monica Canyon, and she was a famous emigre from the 40s, the 30s and 40s, and she used to house a lot of dinner parties and whatnot there. And I think the story is that Gordon Davidson's wife found all these papers of Salka Vertel's in the attic. And he said, this is an extraordinary piece. We should write a story about all these incredible artists, these literary geniuses.
And they all lived around there. Just above the Davidson's house was Christopher Isherwood.
Right.
Of course, he was from London, but,
right.
They were all in that area.
And these people escaped Germany, you know, in the 30s and 40s, and they came here, and they were sort of all thrown into the Hollywood system, and some of them made it, and some of them just couldn't adjust. And it's really sort of the story of how these people who were so well established in Berlin, and Berlin was such a thriving city in the 30s and 40s, came here, and you know, their struggles. Some of them thrived, and some of them really, their life spun out of control.
It addresses all the different people in those in that group,
as well as the Hollywood system. That's why it's called Tales from Hollywood. It's
as well as people who were making it.
Yeah.
But you know, it's funny, in that canyon, it's almost like they went there to hide. It
right.
was like
because it was so far from like Paramount and
so
Hollywood.
Dense. It was very foresty. Maybe that's what it was.
Maybe it was. I don't know. But it was definitely a very, very artistic household, Salka Vertel's.
And when Christopher was staying there, was he able to interview some of the, because it was the 80s, so he probably could interview some of those people.
I spoke to him about that, because we were very fortunate. He came up for the last week of rehearsals.
I know.
And he said that he spent about 4 months actually researching the play and speaking to many different people.
He was very insular when he came out, because I wanted to have him on the show.
Right.
I was very excited because I knew he'd lived with Gordon and Judy for a while.
Yeah.
But he was here for the play.
Right.
Was it intimidating to have him sitting in the audience?
You know, weirdly, here's the way Michael handled it. He went to pick him up from the airport, and he said, I'm going to go get Christopher from the airport, and then I'm going to bring him back to my house, and he probably will come tomorrow. But what they did was they sneakily sort of just brought him in. So I didn't even realize that he was there. But he was very lovely and very generous, and he, you know, it was quite chaotic. I think the first night that he came was a preview, you know, and there was no audience. We were not in good shape. And he,
I love to hear that, because we always think it's always perfect.
Oh no, honey, no. And so when he sort of appeared at the end, it was quite sort of sweet, because you know he was great. It was great to have him there, because he had some very clever notes. Obviously,
I was going to say, did he give you notes?
Yeah, he gave us some really great.
And he
notes.
stayed with Michael.
He stayed with Michael.
So they had a very good relationship.
Yeah, well, Michael used to be his agent. Michael was
Right.
an agent with creative artists, and that's how he actually sort of, I think.
Oh, so he's been in it from the beginning, Michael.
He has. He's been like eyeing off this play, thinking, when I'm not an agent anymore, I'm going to be a director. So that's very sweet.
Yeah, that was great. And it's at the Odyssey Theater, which is close to our studio here.
Right, it is.
And it's
really
wonderful. They have 3 stages.
They do. It's a wonderful theater, you know, and they're always working, and they're very open to new actors and new people, and it's been lovely to be there. Actually, I've never worked at the Odyssey before.
Well, now back to your first big break.
Yeah.
Was it that Full Frontal?
It was. That was the first time that I actually sort of had a regular paycheck and somebody telling me what to do and my name on a door or something.
How did you get it?
I auditioned. You had to audition with 3 different characters.
I see.
And I'd actually just been to America to do some classes. I was here for about a year. And I met all sorts of interesting people when I first came to America, and so
like what? You're laughing.
Well, I met this girl once at a party who couldn't speak to adults, or you know, I wasn't that old at the time, but you know, young people in their 20s. But she would have these intimate conversations with dogs.
Oh my gosh! Oh, you did those kind of interesting.
So
people.
I played a character that was her, based on her.
Oh,
and
but
then
isn't that good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You take from your life.
Yeah.
Especially in the comedy world. And I also, at the time, there was this very controversial woman running for prime ministership in Australia, and she was quite racist and sort of strange, and I sort of created this woman that could be potentially her best friend, and I made her this sort of little snobby South African woman who didn't really understand much.
So that was your audition?
That was one of them, and then there must have been someone else. I can't remember. I think it was probably just based on sort of an Australian celebrity at the time, because you have to be able to impersonate people.
But talking about that and talking about those roles, what kind of roles do you go out for when you go for auditions?
Well, it depends. I mean, it's funny, I have a girlfriend staying with me from Australia right now, and she came to see the play last night, and my role in the play is Nellie Mann. It's based on a real person, and she was sort of quite a tragic person because she was a barmaid in Berlin, and she escaped by lying about not being Jewish. And then when she came to LA, she was very, very unhappy, and they were very, very poor. Her husband, who was much older than her, just could not fit into the system here. And his older brother, Thomas Mann.
Oh, that was the brother of Thomas
Yes.
Mann. This was the sister-in-law of Thomas
Yeah,
Mann.
but in Germany at the time, Heinrich Mann was the sort of the more established writer. So when they came here, it was very difficult for him. He was much older, as I said, and she became very unhappy and sort of was a drinker and got herself into all sorts of trouble legally and whatnot. So there is a situation in the play where, you know, it's not pretty. Things unravel quite at a rapid rate in the second act. But anyway, my girlfriend, back to the story of why I started telling you this, she came to see the play last night, and she said to me, we were sitting by the fire at home last night, and she said, you know, you should just be playing those kind of roles.
Ursula, thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And don't go away. We'll be right back with Cindy Laverty. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back. I'm here with radio host, author Cindy Laverty, who was born and raised in Los Angeles, graduated from Marlborough School, and also the University of Denver. I met Cindy years ago when she was teaching at the Curtis School, and she taught my twin daughters when they went to elementary school there. But in the meantime, she started her own radio show in Santa Barbara, and she's dedicated to the subject of care. It doesn't surprise me, Cindy, because you were a person who always was concerned about people. You were always solving problems. And I remember you were always giving comfort to those little children who needed you.
Oh, thank you.
So now I see you're caregiving for the elderly, or is it only the elderly?
Well, I cared for my ex-father-in-law for 5.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's, life sort of comes to you in these very serendipitous ways.
You mean that is how you got into caregiving?
Yes.
After teaching, were you still teaching?
No, I was actually working in the fitness industry in marketing and advertising.
Oh, I see.
And he asked me one night, I was very close to him even after the divorce, and he asked me one night if I would pay his bills and check on his wife when he had open heart surgery at the age of 83. And so, I asked him why he was doing that, because it's a pretty big surgery, and he called my daughter the butterfly, and he said, because I want to see the butterfly graduate from college, and I can't do it if I don't have this operation.
And that was his granddaughter.
Yes. So there I was,
Oh, so he went for the operation. It wasn't yes or no, he had to go for it.
He had to go, or life was going to be over. So he had the operation, and I cared for him for 5.5 years. And one thing led to another, and people started coming to me through this process and asking me, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? And I realized that there's a huge need for someone to sort of pull the systems and procedures to place for families who don't know what to do.
This isn't, well, let's get to the care company, which you founded.
Yes.
And then we'll talk about what's a part of the care company.
Well, the care company, I work with a registered nurse, and together we help families navigate the senior care journey. My goal, though, is to teach people to become empowered caregivers, to not lose themselves in this process, because...
For the caregiver, you're talking about the caregiver.
Yes.
Because there's caregiver burnout.
There's big time caregiver burnout, because most of us don't know how to manage our own lives. So we jump into this thing thinking we're going to come riding in on the white horse and save everything, and we fall apart in the process.
But it's very difficult because your patient is not patient.
No, they're not.
They're sick.
They're not. Or they're old. Or they're narcissistic.
But I mean, there's all these things you have to deal with.
Yes. And it really is, I think what caregiving does is it teaches us to deal with life on life's terms.
So the care company isn't doctors and nurses and caregivers and everything. It's someone that teaches you what to do?
We have a whole team of people who we recommend, who we refer out, who we work with. But I also do coaching. I do multi-generational coaching for people across the United States.
Well, how do you do that? To whom?
Somebody can go to my website, thecarecompany.biz, and they can say, oh, I think I need an hour of somebody's time.
You mean individuals?
Yes.
It's individuals. Yes. I see, not in large groups.
No, we're moving into larger groups by doing seminars and webinars and things like that.
And then how did you write the book?
When I was caregiving, I was really overwhelmed and had no idea what in the world I was doing. So I would buy these books, and they would be these behemoth things, and I go, the last thing I have time to do at the end of the day is read a behemoth book. So I wrote this book as part of my story, so you feel like you're just sort of talking to me when you're there.
Because it gives you...
And a huge part of it is about how you care for yourself. And then the third part of the book are all of the forms that I created.
That's what's great. All the forms are what everyone would need, or I mean, you pick and choose the forms you need.
And it comes with a CD-ROM, so you just put that CD-ROM in there, and you can download the forms, and then you have your own organized caregiving system.
And then here, what can be done to avoid burnout? I just opened this, but that's what we were talking about. So let's talk about that, because it's in your book.
Well, so often, I mean, we forget to put ourselves at the top of the pyramid. And we live in this little teeny tiny place, and we're trying to take care of everybody and our career and our children and our parents and, whatever. So avoiding caregiver burnout is really tapping into who you are, really tapping into how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what your frustrations are, and not stuffing that.
But who listens to that? You have to do it to yourself, right?
Well, or you ask, the first thing you do is you have a support system.
Oh, I see.
Nobody can be a caregiver by themselves.
I know.
You need a support system, and that isn't always your best friends. you really have to think about who those people are. And you create this support system and you start looking at, am I feeling isolated? Am I feeling angry? Am I living in depression? You know, I'm all about the fact that when you wake up in the morning one day, when you're a caregiver, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be angry, you're going to be resentful. And I always say, just embrace that. We're a society that stuffs our feelings. We're really good at doing that because we're supposed to be able to do everything.
Right. Well, one of the things you say is that you teach to alleviate stress, but why is there so much stress?
First, you're dealing with an aging loved one, probably. Secondly, it's almost always your parent. Thirdly,
or your husband.
Or your husband. So there's all that emotion involved. And we are a great society of fixers. So if we can't fix it, then we get stressed. You know what the best advice I ever got was? You can't fix what's wrong.
So what do?
You advocate. Okay. You advocate on behalf of the person who cannot do that for themselves.
How do you know when it's time to start helping somebody?
The need for care leaves signs everywhere, and you can't keep looking the other way.
Yeah, you don't want to read the signs.
We don't want to read the signs. So what happens is there's signs everywhere. There's, you know, if it's your parents or a spouse. Well, if it's a spouse and you're living in the same home, it's easier to tell. But if it's your parents, usually there's a messier house. Check out food in the refrigerator.
Oh, really?
See
Things
if there
like
is
that?
food in the refrigerator. Look to see if your mom's clothes are a little more stained than usual.
Really?
They're just little. You have to sort of fine-tune your Sherlock Holmes skills. And don't ignore them. I always say you should get that house safety-proofed, elder-proofed that house because falls lead to rehab, lead to hospitals, lead to homes. Life goes spinning out of control.
How do you know how to elder-proof that?
Well, in my book, there's an elder-proof your home scavenger hunt.
I see.
Or you can call Cindy Laverty, and I will come and do it for you.
Oh,
I don't install. I don't install. I come through with my little thing. Go, we need this here, this here.
Oh, is that right? Okay, so we're dealing with people that we're close to. What if they live out of the city, out of the country? What do we do?
Then you've got to take a trip. You got to take a trip.
Yeah.
You got to go check things out. And always, if you're out of the area, you can find somebody in the local area. You can contact social workers, hospitals. There's care managers all over the place. Unless you want them to come back and move in with you.
Does that happen a lot?
It does. It's happening more and more because people are not able to afford to house the elderly anymore. It's very expensive.
Oh.
And you know, it's kind of a.
But what about these like AARP and Medicare? Do those things help in this
AARP
situation?
has a lot of information on their website. No, they don't help. Medicare pays doctors' bills.
So you need someone to get all your doctor's bills together. Is that what you're saying?
You need someone to get everything organized for you or teach you what to do, because when we're not, it's like being a parent. Who trains you to be a parent? Nobody.
Nobody.
Who trains you to be a caregiver? Nobody.
I see.
I mean, when I was doing this, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe all the things there are to do. How do I know how to do all this?
But just going to the hospital, just filling out the forms and knowing how to get your medicine, your medication, and what doctors to call for different things.
Right.
That's
right.
what the caregiver does.
Well, no, the caregiver doesn't do that. The primary care doctor is the one who's really instrumental here.
I see. Okay.
Your primary care physician needs to be the quarterback of your team.
That's good to know.
And if you don't trust that primary care doctor, you need to find one who you do trust. It's important, especially with the medical system the way it is today. And navigating hospitals and doctors, it's hard.
Some children helping elderly parents have their own kids to take care of too. How do you juggle all of that?
Oh, sandwich generation.
Is that what it is?
Sandwich generation.
You mean we eat sandwiches?
This is again, well, we're caught in the middle of the sandwich generation.
Okay.
So this is about having your support team in place. And you need to know what the financial situation is of your parents. Can you afford to hire caregivers?
Yeah.
So
And
you've
how
gotta-
long is their money going to last?
Exactly. Exactly. Or, then we also have what I call flyby siblings. Siblings that come in from out of town and go, you need to do this and this and
Right.
this and this, and you're not doing that. And I say you have a contract with your siblings, because not everybody can be a caregiver.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. You mean the one child?
Yeah, if
The
you're
si-
going
the
to be the
sister or brother
responsible
has his
person,
contract,
then
yeah.
you're going to pitch in and help pay for this.
Oh, I see. Good idea.
It's like running a little business.
I see. I see.
And you got to set it up like you're running a little business.
Well, then, how could you get a radio show about this? What do
my
you do?
radio show is not about caregiving.
Oh, it's not.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's
Tell me
about
about
the
that.
subject of care, how we care for ourselves, so we can better care for each other. So we talk about any subject that has the tiniest component of care attached to it. It could be caring for your family, caring for your health, caring for your wellness, caring for your money, so caring for your spirit, anything that has the tiniest component of care.
And how do we get over being guilty about the way we're taking care of ourselves, our friends, our spouses? Because there's always a guilt part involved.
Well, I think guilt is just like, this big, loud ego voice in your head telling you all the things that you can't do. And I say you just sort of kick that to the side and go, I'm doing the best I can here. I can't be every place all at the same time. It's okay to be a little bit selfish and say, you know what, today I'm going to lunch, or today I'm going to just go for a hike. It's okay to do that. Life is just a journey. So you have a choice. Am I going to live it in the light, or am I going to live it in guilt and fear?
Yeah, you can't do that, right?
And what does that get you?
You need a caregiver then.
You do. You need a caregiver
Yeah,
then.
then you need a caregiver. And the statistics say we have 30 more years on our life, right?
Right.
And we have to have a new career maybe at 50 or 60.
That's right. That's right.
So we have to keep healthy and keep going.
Yes. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I think, is that what your radio show is?
It is. It's all about that. It's all about just, living your life in the best possible way. And stop with all this fear and angst. And what does it get you?
Gets us together.
Gets you nowhere.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, Joan.
I'm glad you came today. It was really great to hear some of the problems that we do have to face.
Thank you.
Thanks. Keep writing. 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles 90017, and JAQUINN1 at AOL.com. Send me an email.